Let's fight, folks. Let's fight. Welcome to our program. We're in the whip this morning. We're fighting with the whip this morning. We're in the whip, and a good morning to each and every one of you. Good to see you guys wherever you are. And I know we have surprised a couple of you who are coming on. We're going to be put through to our Facebook pages, and we're going to be put through to YouTube and also Twitter. Good to have each and every one of you. We're discussing the reopening of school. Welcome to the whip. That's our fight this morning. We are talking about the reopening of schools, and we're very, very privileged to have with us the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, the Honorable Member of Parliament, Coretta McDonald, and we're going to be wading through some of the issues that concerns lots and lots of parents and teachers as well, and by extension, the general public, where it concerns the reopening of school. And we trust that wherever you guys are this morning, that you're having a great Sunday morning, that you're up, you have perhaps had your breakfast, you've read the newspapers, and you are ready to tackle the day ahead. And of course, we know once it's the weekend, it's, the temperature and things tend to be taken down. But we know for lots of parents, your attention has been heightened with this reopening of schools. And so that is our discussion this morning, folks. That is our discussion this morning. But first, folks, welcome back to the whip, folks. And as I said, I'm grateful and privileged to have with me this morning Coretta McDonald, the Member of Parliament, who is also the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. Ms. McDonald, a very good morning and welcome to the whip. I think this is the first time I'm privileged to have you. Let me give you back your mic. Sorry about that.
Good morning, Sherrod, my colleague, and thank you for having me on the whip. I have not used the whip for quite some time because, not that I don't believe in the whip, but because I believe that we can talk more and have more coming out rather than using the whip. But I'm happy to be here on the whip, and I'll be happy to share with you and your audience, to the best of my ability, the questions that you're going to pose this morning on the topic reopening of schools.
Fantastic. And again, I want to welcome all those who are joining us, and we encourage you guys to share the live stream wherever you're picking us up from this morning. Already hundreds of you are on the live stream. I know you didn't come to see me. It's because Coretta is here, but we're privileged nonetheless to have each and every one of you. General Secretary, let's get right to it. So school is reopening tomorrow. Schools in general here in Guyana, they're opening tomorrow, the 6th day of September, but there seems to be lots of mixed messages. The Ministry of Education had a press conference a couple days ago that didn't seem to help the situation, because the public in general got a sense that schools in general were being opened. And I see here we have a post from the installed Minister of Education, which says, and I want to quote, "All schools open on the 6th of September. Open means different things and looks differently for each school. Not all schools open fully for face-to-face instruction. Some do and some open partially. Secondary schools in particular open for face-to-face instructions in accordance with the vaccination rollout at their school. So if school X got their vaccines on the 1st of September and are given the 28th of September as the date for their second dose, the children of school X who took their vaccines would be considered fully inoculated 7 days after the second dose, and will open for those students for face-to-face instruction at that time. School Y, however, took their first dose of vaccine on the 15th of September. They will open for face-to-face learning 15 days after school X. Online delivery of education will begin for all secondary schools on the 6th. So again, the press conference didn't seem to clarify much, because here's the minister have to come back and now try to clarify what this school opening on September 6th means. And again, it's different things to different school based on vaccination. What is your take, General Secretary?
Sherrod, let me say to our audience out there, we know that quite a lot of our parents look forward to reopening of schools after your children would have been home for the August vacation, which is 2 months. In this instance, it has been an extended vacation, and no fault of the parents, no fault of the teachers. But it's because we are not operating in normal times, we would have had this issue pounced upon us, COVID. Now, our children have been at home, and parents are all excited at this time to have schools reopening their doors so that the children can be engaged in face to face learning with their teachers. But even with that, we have to be very mindful that COVID is still out there and we have to be careful. What we usually have happening with the reopening of schools is that you were going to have direct communication coming from the Ministry of Education. Direct communication in the form of a memo or a missive, letterhead and everything nice, and you have signatures at the bottom or a signature at the bottom. Now, the person who is authorized by law to declare open and closing of schools is the Chief Education Officer. But I have seen of late, the installed Minister of Education, she's the minister, she's the chief, deputy chief, she's every single thing. And we are having more than confusion in the system right now, because all you're having, you got a big fancy press conference, but 3/4 of the press conference is based on Sherrod Duncan and Coretta McDonald, and there's little to say to the parents. And so parents are even more confused now than ever before. Now, we heard the article that you read just now, that was from Facebook, where a parent was asking a question. That was not something that was made, that was issued by the Ministry of Education. That was a response from a parent on Facebook. Now, is that the way we are going to operate in our schools? I want to say this now, and I'll continue to say it. The Ministry of Education, they have no plan, none whatsoever. When you tell people about individualized reopening, it means that you have no plan. Because if you're talking individualized reopening, it means everybody will be doing their own thing at their own time. But you know what is the danger in that? Is that our children, they have to write the same nationalized exams. They're not writing individualized exams. The same national exams they're going to have to write. Now we have the ministry knew that they wanted to bring this Pfizer vaccine. Now, if you're going to bring this vaccine and you know that this vaccine has got to be administered in 2 doses, now you must have known beforehand the time frame within which you're going to be issuing these two. And so if you're going to launch the vaccine drive, then you would have been able to calculate, we give first dose day 1, second dose day 5. So 5 days after day 5 is day 10. So day 12th or day 13th, schools are going to be reopened. You knew that you were bringing these vaccines. Why this vaccine has not been able to be rolled out across the board? Why is it we starting here, then we jump then we jump back this side? You know, parents on the Essequibo Coast have complained that they went to the Essequibo Coast to administer the vaccine. And you have, and I'm just using a number here, you have 400 children turning up there with their parents and so on, and you only walk with 200 vaccines. Are we making sense? Now, this whole rolling out of vaccine is just a big clumsy show that Priya likes to be on. She's not serious about what she's doing. She nor her government, they're not serious about what they're doing. Now, if we really wanted schools to be reopened, then we would have had a timetabled schedule of rolling out of vaccines. We would have had these vaccines being rolled out school by school by school, and not you have one school and 17 schools are in a cluster, or 10 schools are in a cluster, and all of those children are banking up there. As a matter of fact, yesterday I saw an article from a young lady where she was complaining bitterly, and she was saying, she was showing the crowd behind, and she was saying, well, while you're bringing your children to take the vaccine, you're giving them COVID at the same time because of the crowd that they have there. Now, are we really thinking about what we're doing? These people, they don't understand anything. They don't understand systems. They don't understand how to manage. They don't understand how to govern. What I know for sure is that they know fully well about how to thief. They know corruption good. That's what they know, and how to victimize people. But back to the reopening of schools. We are going to have quite a lot of confusion, because I notice now you're getting bits and pieces on Facebook here and there, and you're seeing head teachers are sending us little WhatsApp messages that they're receiving from their district education officers. Oh, your school would be doing this at this time. Your school is going to be engaged in the vaccine drive. Please ensure that your teachers are there to supervise, to put up the sections, to have the space for the lines, to have registration and who will collect names and so on. And teachers are kicking up about this, because teachers are saying, we are not health professionals. Why we must register students? Why we must do this? Why we must do that? They must get the health people to do that. Now you're asking us to come into schools to assist in that, but you put out a notice there that says, if I'm not vaccinated, I can't come to school on Monday.
Yeah.
But you want me to come to school before Monday or during the time that you're going to be rolling out the vaccines. It's okay for me to come to school. But when schools are actually in session, I can't come to school. That's one part of the issue. The other part of the issue that we have is this whole reopening of schools. I mean, all of us would like to have our school doors reopened and our children going out to schools. But while we are having this plan going forward, we need to have plan B and C, which is what the Ministry of Education don't have, because what we're having now is that we have seen our numbers, they have skyrocketed.
And this is the COVID numbers, the COVID confirmed cases.
Yes, we have seen the installed Minister of Health finally admitting that we have the Delta virus here and that it's affecting children. But yet, we don't have a plan B. We still want to open the doors of schools to push the children out. And you know what? We're having secondary schools doing online classes, but we're reopening primary schools, and we are even reopening Sherrod nursery schools.
Yeah.
Nursery schools, we're talking here about children who are going to be coming to school for the first time. 3-6, 3-9, 3-2. You know, when children come to school for the first time, you're going to have lots of balling in school when the parents leave. How are teachers going to be able to man that situation in light of COVID, when you have to stay 6 feet apart? What is going to be happening in the nursery schools? I mean, somebody couldn't think sensibly to say, well, look, nursery schools and maybe the grades 1, we're not going to reopen schools for those little children. Now, as an adult, we find it difficult quite a lot of times to keep those masks on for long periods. Now, you're telling a child that is 3-6, 3-2, 3-9, that they must have that mask on for 2 hours, because the nursery school children are going to school for 2 hours at a time. Parents have to get to work for 8 o'clock. Nursery school starts at 8. Parents have to come there to drop off their nursery school child. 2 hours after that, you have to return to pick up your child. So it means, therefore, that that parent will, if the parent is a working parent, then that parent will have to either take her child. First, she got to ask for time off to come out to pick up the child. And then she's either got to take that child home and get somebody to oversee that child, or she has to take the child to her workplace with her. What are we doing? Are we making sense? I think somebody, plenty people in the ministry not thinking. And many of those who are thinking, bridles have been placed on their mouth so they can't speak, for fear of victimization and demotion and transfers and all kinds of things. But people need to speak out against these things, because it's crazy and it's going to cause lots of harm in our society. Imagine your little 3-year-old, 3-2, and a 3-6-year-old going into those kinds of situations. The other situation that we have is that the document has now said And it's enforcing the issue that if you don't have your vaccines and you don't have you don't have the test, you can't go into the school compound. Well, I'm waiting for tomorrow morning. I'm waiting for tomorrow morning because you know what? Our teachers have decided that we are going to rally around each other. We are going to rally around each other. And this is teachers across this country. Of course, we're not going to have all of the teachers on board, but many of our teachers have decided if my colleague cannot be allowed to come into school, then I will join my colleague on the outside. Many of them have decided that I would, even if I want to remain in school, I would not be able to man the amount of children in the schools because the numbers are going to be over my head. And so I will not stay in school to have anything happen, because if anything happens, I am going to have to produce a report. And so that is the confusion we are going to see tomorrow.
Noted. General Secretary, please stay with us. I'll be right back with you. On that note, folks, I want to welcome, we have some challenges with our green screen in the background. Let me ensure that we adjust that. And I want to welcome you guys in the ring. It's not that I am so thin now, I am disappearing, but I want to welcome you guys in the ring. That's a challenge we're having there. And let you know that we are back on the air, and to let you know what is the order of our program this morning. Of course, the WHIP is a program that examines the issues and the individuals in the National Assembly, scrutinizing bills and motions. We look at questions that were brought to the National Assembly and answers that were tabled. We also, in this program, examine issues of national importance, hence the reopening of schools in this context. And this morning's program, as we have been discussing, we've been discussing the reopening of schools. We'll be talking about the mixed messages being sent by the ministry, the vaccination of teachers. That's quite an important issue. And are schools physically ready for opening? And then also in the air is strike action by the teachers union, in addition to some other unions. So these are just some of the issues we'll be walking through to give you a sense of what we'll be discussing in the remaining time that we have. And with that, I want to welcome back the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, Kretcha McDonald. Kretcha, moving our discussion on, we're talking about the reopening of schools, and we see here that PAHO has said to the administrations in the region, and this is through Dr. Etienne, that there should be a phased approach in reopening schools to face-to-face learning for the academic year 2021-2022. She says, in light of the COVID-19, she says that the approach should be taken into consideration the local epidemiological situation, and she notes this can change rapidly. She says surveillance will be key in ensuring that the reopening is done safely and that learning environments remain safe. I think this aspect of it is quite important. She says that in almost every country, what we do not want is for schools to be transformed into catalysts for COVID-19 to spread even more. Talk to us, General Secretary.
Exactly so, and we are saying the same thing, and that's why I said we should have had a plan A and a plan B and even a plan C, because as things change, then we'll have to use our supplementary plan to kick in. Now, I've seen in other Caribbean territories, and I can tell you about what's happening in Grenada. In Grenada, schools are going to be reopened online. In Grenada, their total deaths so far is 5. And you know what I've seen there just yesterday? Grenada brought their curfew down to 7 o'clock in the evening. It was at 9, they brought it to 7. Next week, they're going to be bringing their curfew time down to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But here in Guyana, we are immune to COVID. And so our curfew time is way up at 11 o'clock, which is total madness. And all it is saying to us, and I'm hoping that Guyanese people are listening and they are watching, their eyes are open, and they're watching and they are recognizing that this installed regime doesn't care about them. This installed regime is not about the poor and ordinary. This installed regime is about the rich and the richer and those who will get richest. That is what this installed regime is about. And we have to be concerned about this. Now, I've seen in Antigua the manner with which they have rescheduled the reopening of schools because of what is happening there. We have seen Trinidad saying full online classes, virtual classes. We have seen Jamaica saying they are going to be phasing theirs and they're going to only have online classes when they know for sure that it is safe and that their students have been fully vaccinated. They're going to have online classes in the secondary schools. We have seen in Belize, the teachers are going out there to schools, but they are teaching online. We have seen the same thing in Bermuda and Bahamas. And I'm saying this because we have all of these contacts because we form part of the Caribbean Union of Teachers. And so we have the information as colleagues. We communicate with each other. We get the documentation from them. But in Guyana is a special place. Could you imagine in Guyana? We were going to, the Ministry of Education were going to reopen schools for the disabled children, David Rose Special School. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that right now, as of tomorrow, schools are going to be opened for the visually impaired? Now, Sherrod and parents, you tell me if that is making sense. And the visually impaired here, I'm talking about those who are, and I'm sorry that I have to put it this way, but those who are blind. Schools will be reopened for them to go to the unit. Now, those children, the teachers there have to go stand behind them, put their hands, hold their hands to take them here, especially the new ones. Now, we're talking COVID here, you know.
Yeah.
We're talking COVID. Now, again, I'm going to say, the Ministry of Education, they have no plan. None whatsoever. All that Priya knows that she has got to do is jump herself around the place and pose off everywhere to say, oh, the vaccination process. And look, 300 children. And look, 400. That's all she's concerned about. That's all she's concerned about. And, you know, it's sad that when you have to talk about these issues and you have to make reference to the person who's heading the sector, they see it as you attacking them. Because I heard her talking about Coretta McDonald attacking me. I'm not attacking Priya. I have no reasons to attack Priya. Priya doesn't worth attack from me. And I'm attacking her husband and I'm attacking her father. The only person who I've not attacked is her dead mother. But I want to say to her that your mother was a dignified woman. So I would have nothing evil to say about your mother, unlike you who feel that you're a bully and a dictator and you can do things without not even knowing what you're doing. And this is what we have happening in the education sector. It's total madness. And again, even the education officers who know what to do, they are being silenced and they can't do, because if Priya said jump, they have to jump. That's the kind of madness we're having. Could you imagine officials from the Ministry of Education? They were escorted by police. These are the people who got to put the systems in place, you know. They were escorted out of the offices by police. So you can understand clearly how these people feel about the ordinary Guyanese man and woman. They don't
General
have time.
Secretary McDonald, what you've said there, it seems strange that the Minister of Education seem to not to like criticism, even though, for instance, the strategic plan for education, this 21 to 2025 strategic plan, talks about improving governance and accountability. She doesn't seem to like accountability and anybody who's critical of education. That being said, we see them as saying that over 50% of teachers have been vaccinated. They seem to be this push to want to reopen schools. They want to show the status quo stands. Everything is normal under their administration. And so 50%, according to them, you might know differently, of teachers have been vaccinated. You now have lockouts of teachers happening. And then former Minister of Health, Dr. Leslie Ramasamy said recently, apparently teachers favor the Pfizer vaccines. If you all want Pfizer vaccine, maybe you all can go and source it for the government. What do you make of all of this?
I've been saying all along, Leslie is a geriatric, and I will continue to say that. Because, you know, the thing is, while we ought to be serious about this whole vaccination process, we taking this thing too thin and too personal. Now, if teachers are saying, I prefer to have this vaccine, mind you, you are telling us that we have to be vaccinated. And if teachers are saying, well, look, we prefer to go this way. We don't want the Sputnik. We don't want AstraZeneca. We don't want Moderna. We don't want that one. We want this one. Now, that's your response to the educators. And these are the people who you want to go out to schools. Now, if you don't get it for them, then they'll not be vaccinated. And what you'll tell them, stay out of schools. Now, when they stay out of schools, what happens? Can the wheels in the schools turn with teachers on the outside? It can't happen. And so I'll continue to say, that man there is a geriatric. He was there before and he made no difference. What I know for sure he did was to order and approve spy equipment to do worthlessness across this country. That's what he knows, nothing else. And I have absolutely no apology for that, because that's a fact. That is a fact, that he ordered spy equipment to do foolishness across this country. But it is very, very disgusting. And like you just said, the ministry rolled out their strategic plan and they're talking about good governance and all kind of craziness. Yes, good governance on paper, fancy talks on paper, but you don't have that, because as the GTU, as a major stakeholder in education, every time we have to critique anything coming from the Ministry of Education, people take it personal. And that should not be. That should not be. We went out there, we were with the Ministry of Education. A week and a half ago, we were supposed to be planning, as a matter of fact, I think it might have been 2 weeks, we were supposed to be going out to schools to check on the readiness. And I'm saying that to say GTU is all about education. We are all about vaccination, but we are saying no to forced vaccination. We are all about this process. We are all about our children's education. But in all of this, we have to ensure that not only our teachers are safe, but that our children are safe. Now, we talk about reopening schools. You hear the talk about reopening schools. We had such a long time, like I said before, to think about the date that we are going to reopen schools. I mean, come on. Common sense couldn't say to the Minister of Education, the installed Minister of Education, and our cohorts, hey, let's start having a conversation with the minibus union. Let's start having a conversation with the traffic department, and let's try to put some systems in place so that we can identify some buses in the different zones that are going to be used we're not asking them to pay for the transportation, but you identify certain buses, and these are the buses that would be used to transport the children to and from schools, so that you wouldn't see our children being mixed in buses with everybody, and you wouldn't see our children liming at the bus parks. But we have special buses that would have been identified. On the East Bank, you have special, but not special, but particular 42 buses that will man that route. You have particular buses, and this engagement with the minibus union, they would have been able to get their drivers to say, well, okay, I can take on this, we will take on this, so many of us. And you put special tags on those buses, so when parents see those buses, they know that those are the buses that are ready to pick up their school children. They're gonna pay their $60 or $80, and we have this happening all across the country. But we don't have that. So we are seeing the regular minibuses, you stop them on the road, you jump in, you jump out. The regular hire cars, you jump in, you jump out. I touch you, I don't know what you have, you don't know what I have, and the whole mix-up story there. And you are coming into school. Now you're telling teachers that they have to be vaccinated, but you have no support system for the children who are under 12. You're having a vaccine for those 12 and above, but nothing for those 12 and below. So what is going to happen with them? They're left at the mercies of the wolves, and God help them.
That's how it seems. That's how it seems.
It's crazy. But Sharon, yeah. I'm not an illiterate parent. I'm a literate parent. And so I know exactly what I will do with my child. And may I remind and inform Priya Manik Chand that I'm a mother, because she claims not to know whether I'm a mother or not. I'm a mother of 2 boys, 18 and 6 years old. And so as a mother who would have felt labor pain, I know what to do with my child. Maybe Priya didn't feel labor pain. She probably had that injection in her back, so she didn't feel the pain. But I felt the pain. And so I am proud to be a mother because I walked the journey naturally. And I know what to do with my child. I know exactly what to do with my child.
General Secretary McDonald, as we approach the opening of school, the much pushed and forced opening of school by the installed administration, are these schools physically ready? We know they're pushing teachers to be vaccinated, students to be vaccinated, personnel in general. But are schools physically ready? We see instances where there are snakes in schools. We saw one instance where there are bees in school. Furniture unkept, sanitation areas have not been prepared as yet. I mean, there's not the responsibility of teachers. Clearly, are schools in large measure physically ready for reopening?
No, they're not. No, they're not. And like you just mentioned, we have seen 2 nursery schools where we saw one, a snake in the ceiling, and the other one, a snake crawling on at the side of the cupboard. Now, we have had reports from a number of primary schools and a number of secondary and nursery schools across this country where the yards, tall vegetation, and you find persons now going yesterday and today they're going to weed and spray. Hear me clearly. They're going to weed and spray yesterday, today, and tomorrow the children have got to turn up there. This is highly unacceptable. And like I'm saying, there was no plan, because if you had a plan, then this should have been done at least 4 days ago, at least 5 days ago. And you know why these snakes are crawling out now? The snakes are crawling out because you went and you sprayed the day before. So the snakes are finding a safe and comfortable place to go. And that's why we are having that. We have bees because nobody went out there to check. And like I started saying earlier, the GTU and the ministry was on the verge of going out there into schools, checking on the readiness of schools. We had an entire checklist there with about 30 issues where you had to tick off adequate, not at all, and then you had remarks column. But by the time we started that program on the first day, the Ministry of Education, in their deceitful way, went on air to throw things in the air, and the GTU felt that we are not going to stand idly by and allow the ministry to be deceitful to us. We sat at a meeting even as late as the Sunday afternoon before we embarked on that activity the Monday. Nobody from the Ministry of Education said anything to us about reopening of schools and children, teachers being vaccinated and all of that. But lo and behold, on Monday at about 3:30, 4 o'clock, we saw press release on the Ministry of Education's Facebook page. And that's how disrespectful they are. And so GTU pulled its services, pulled its members from that entire exercise. Now, we know that in the schools, and I don't know why the minister jumping around the place and talking about 50% of teachers are vaccinated. 50% of teachers in which one of the sectors? Primary, secondary, nursery? Give us the percentage per level, and you'll see exactly where and that's what she doesn't want to do, because you'll see clearly that most of the teachers I should tell you about who are fully vaccinated are the nursery schools, where you have, in some nursery schools, you have 3 staff. In other nursery schools, you got 5 staff, and she likes to take off, 100% vaccinated in a nursery school that got 5, as compared to another nursery school that got 11 teachers and only 3 are vaccinated. So what I would want the installed Priya Manik Chand to do is to give us the spreadsheet, show us in the secondary schools how many are vaccinated per region. Show us in the primary schools how many teachers are vaccinated per region. Show us in the nursery schools how many teachers are vaccinated per region. And then you are going to get the clear picture that when you talk about this 50%, we might very well have 50% coming from the Essequibo Coast alone. But we still have Essequibo Coast is region 2. We got Bartica, we got region 9, we got region 8, we got region 1. And well, we got 7, 8, 1, and 9. How many of them there are vaccinated? Show us the percentage in Berbice, in the county of Berbice. And we're talking here 5 and 6. Show us according to sectors or the levels, secondary, primary, and nursery, and you'll get a good laugh. You'll get a good laugh off of it. But the thing is, Sherrod, you know how these people operate. They always like this big flowery show.
Fluff and
they could never, plenty fluff, never come down to grassroots to give you the exact figure. And we've experienced that in Parliament, where they come and they give you this big figure. And when you ask them to break it down for you, trouble. But it's just crazy. And I want to advise and to caution parents that your children, your child is your asset. And if your child doesn't go to school this week or next week or the other week, your child is going to be safe. Rather than sending your child out there in the unknown, because you're not sure what is going to happen with the teachers, the situation with the teachers there tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And your child is going to be left there to try on a peer mask, and somebody can take off them on and give this one, and somebody can say, your own look nice. Let me see. And we share from the same cup, and we do this and we do that. Now, these were questions, Sherrod, that I personally raised with the teacher for my son's grade. My son is going into grade 2 now. I asked, what systems do you have in place to monitor toilet visits? What system you have in place for that? How many cleaners do you have? Are the toilets going to be sanitized after every use, or you're going to wait for 15 minutes and then you sanitize? In that time, 6, 7, 8, 9 children don't collect the virus, right? You know that. I ask, who will be supervising the children during their lunch break and during their mid-morning break? What happens? Or is it that you are going to have them stuck in the classroom? How do you mark my child's book? How do you give guidance to my child to say whether my child is copying correctly from the board? Because mind you have to stay a distance apart. So how are you going to see clearly in my child's book whether my child is forming the letter properly or not forming the letter properly? And if my child doesn't write for that morning, what happens? Because you can't pull my child close to you to get him to stand up there to write. What happens there? When my child is out, because my child is supposed to be going for 2 days, when my child is out for those 3 days, because up to now we don't know what is happening with Friday. When my child is out because he has to go to school Monday and Wednesday, what happens to Tuesday and Thursday? Is it that you're going to give him a booklet so that he can do some work? And when you come on Wednesday, the Tuesday will fill the Tuesday absence Wednesday will make up for the Tuesday's absence.
They haven't decided yet.
As we speak, they don't have booklets in schools. As we speak, they don't have anything. They don't even have the hard copies of the consolidated curriculum. They have the soft copies that they've sent out to teachers, and teachers sending those out to parents. And these people talking about they're ready, Yeah. These jagabots talking about how they're ready for school reopening, and they don't even have the hard copies. Now, if a teacher doesn't have the money to print the hard copy, mind you, since last year, they ain't give the teachers laptop computers or desktop computers. Yeah. So teachers have to use their own monies, the little monies that are drawing already. They got to take that again to go to print these schemes. Now, they've said for this week, the teachers are going to be doing diagnostic tests with the children, diagnostic tests. So whole week this week, you're doing diagnostic. Now, you don't know at the end of this week what you have to do next week because there is no clear plan. So maybe by Thursday or Friday, you're going to have the teachers return, be in school on Friday, and then you give them a whole set of work to do so that they can start on Monday. I'm not sure the direction that we're going. But what I can tell you is that this installed regime, this Ministry of Education, they are full of confusion. I really can't say the word that I want to say, Cheryl. They are full of confusion. They don't have any direction for our children. And all they are doing is putting out a set of fancy talks out there with nothing behind it. Nothing. Empty talks they're putting out there. But as parents, again, I want to say to you, it is your choice whether you're going to send your child out there in the open, not certain about what the atmosphere is going to be, or whether you're going to clamor on the installed minister to put a proper system in place. And until such time, let's have our children do classes online at home until such time that they have a proper system in place.
Yeah. General Secretary McDonald,
Shara, just before I go, let me say to you, just yesterday morning, I got 2 WhatsApp messages, one from a nursery school and one from a primary school, where the head teachers were informing their staff and other parents that because 2 teachers within those schools, one is a teacher and a cleaner in the school, they have been tested positive for COVID. That primary school and that nursery school would not be reopened on Monday. We're going to have many more of that.
Yeah. General Secretary McDonald, just before I let you go, it seems to us that we're witnessing what happens when an immovable object in the government meets an unstoppable force like the GTU. Is there strike action imminent?
Well, of course, you know, Sherrod, because the thing is, our teachers are going to be turning up at their places of work, ready to work. And if you're going to lock them out, then we got issues right there. And maybe, Sharon, we might have schools on the bridges of some schools or the entrances of some schools. We might have classes being conducted there, because if I can't go in, I might as well put up a little tent and teach my children right on the outside if I can't go in the building. You know, but I have been saying to our teachers, and we have said to our teachers, turn up to school and let the head teacher tell you that you can't go into school because you don't have a blue book or you don't have a test, or let the guards tell you that. As a matter of fact, we've been questioning the authority of the guards, and who gave the guards the authority to question head teachers, because guards take their instructions from head teachers. Now we having it turning around, I think now, where the guards are issuing instructions to head teachers. But like I said, we await tomorrow to see what is going to happen, and then we'll have a big laugh about it.
Great. General Secretary McDonald, we have to leave our discussion there for this weekend of the WIP, but I want to thank you so much for coming and for explaining these issues, because there's so much concern out there with parents and families as we head back into the academic year for all intents and purposes, and lots of trepidation as to what exactly will occur tomorrow. I want to thank you for spending this time with us again here in the WIP.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Folks, we want to advise you guys to continue to social distance, to use your mask, to sanitize, and to practice all the COVID-19 protocols that are there for your health and your safety, that of your friends, family, and loved ones. And thanks for joining us here in the WIP. We are back. Parliament is officially in recess until October, but we are not in recess here on the WIP, and so we're going to be back every weekend, bringing you discussing these national issues. As you know, the WIP is a program designed for us to examine and to look at what's happening at the parliamentary level. We look at the issues and the individuals in the House, the scrutiny of bills and of motions. We look at questions brought and answers tabled, and we also look at national issues, as the one we were discussing this morning, the reopening of schools nationally, and how all of these issues impact you, especially as citizens. I want to thank you guys for joining us here for the WIP.